Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends. Episode 32. We have an interview today with Jonathan Thomas. I've got Gary in the studio, and I'm Byron. How are you doing today, Gary?
I am doing great. How about you, Byron?
I'm doing great. We just recently talked to Jonathan, and he got awarded his black belt, not too long ago, and we're looking forward to seeing him compete at that higher level and watch him work his philosophies about jiu-jitsu and his game.
Yeah, it was definitely great talking to him. We actually had the pleasure of training with him here a couple of years ago there too, so it was neat to catch up with him, and I felt I learned a lot just talking to him. He passed on some great knowledge to definitely help my game.
If you haven't heard or seen anything of him yet, you will. I mean, obviously today you will, but you would have anyway in the future because he's going to make some waves. He's real big on his ability to recompose. Should you nearly pass his guard or you get side control, he's escaping so fast that it really didn't matter. No points awarded. He's back to the position he wants. He's back to working his game. He talks a lot about that. He's real big on positional sparring. That's helped us a lot. I know that, Gary. Get in a position you want to work on and start rolling from that position. Once you get out of that position, get right back in it and do it again.
Yeah, he's really big into positional sparring. But what I thought was neat is just before he went on air, I was talking with Byron, and Byron was remembering when he rolled with him back when he came to town when he was a brown belt. And Byron's exact words were, it went from neutral to bad to really bad. Rinse and repeat. And he's like, then we'd shake hands and start again, and Byron's like, I've never rolled with anybody like him. It's just...
it's been a long, like a white belt level, since I've had that experience. Like, you start off in a neutral position, and then, I'm on top in his guard, and then I get swept. Oh, it's bad. And then it gets worse. And then it gets tighter. Then it gets worse. Then I get tapped, and then we do it again and again. Yep, that's how it goes. That's fine.
It's definitely a learning experience.
It's a good way to learn.
Boy, just talking to him, I felt like my game got better. He's really great at breaking things down, and it was just very informative.
So he shares a lot of his philosophies with you guys. You'll be able to learn about jiu-jitsu. I mean, you should be able to implement some of this stuff today in your training and get better. If you think about positional sparring, how many minutes have you spent this month escaping the triangle choke? I mean, it's in minutes. It's if that at all. If you've even been put in a triangle, but if you put yourself there in that position, you could get 30, 45 minutes a day escaping triangle. It's going to go through the roof on your ability to get out of that situation. So that's just the one little example of high-quality positional sparring with a good opponent.
Yeah. And he thinks about a jiu-jitsu match as a bunch of different positions, so that positional sparring is just helping you. You're working on getting out of side mount, or you're working on controlling the back. So it's, he talked about how him and his buddy would order pizza and just sit there and, watch moves and, practice them and, spend a whole afternoon doing that. And that's probably why he's as good as he is.
It's definitely one of his big keys to success.
But the repositioning is, if you got to get a chance to train with him to see him show his repositioning, and it'll really help your game there.
We've got a sponsor of the show today. We have Fujisports.com. Swing by there. We have the coupon code capital BJJ and then capital B on brick. We'll get you 10% off, guys, and swing by there and check out their huge selection of gis, and they have a lot of no-gi gear as well. I know Gary likes his no-gi shorts. And
I have 2 pairs of the shorts right now, and I'm loving them, and everybody who sees my shorts wants to know where I got them. So definitely check those out. Check the gis out. Rash guards, T-shirts, they got the whole shebang.
So thank you to Fujisports.com. Gary, we've got a quote of the week. We have it from last week's interview with Dan Coyle. He went ahead and gave us a quote we could use this time. I'll go ahead and play that now.
Sort of semi-crazy Irish playwright, but Samuel Beckett. But it's really good. I think it goes like this: fail, fail again, fail better. And I've always liked that as a little, really that's a deep understanding of how you get good at stuff.
being in the sweet spot, building your myelin. That sounds like that person is in deep practice, right? I mean, if you don't want to go to train every day and to win every time.
No, you're not going to, and embracing that fact, and not, and realizing that, as the old saying goes, it's not if you fall down, it's how you get back up. And I think we always think of that as a moral truth, like, oh, that's so noble. Well, it is noble, that's true, but it's also true. It's not just kind of dreamy Disney sentiment. It's sort of neurologically true. It's scientifically true. So I think that's a very powerful statement.
Big thank you from Daniel Coyle for the quote of the week. He said, if you haven't listened to the episode, that was last week's episode. I'll put a link on there. Check it out. It's a great educational tool about how to train for anything, on or off the mat. But he had a few keywords on there that you wouldn't know unless you heard that episode. Sweet spot refers to like that part in your training where your mind is able to really absorb a lot of information and you're really learning a lot. So if you're failing, you're at a place where you could learn. It's not a time to be frustrated. It's a time to try to get the opportunity to learn from it. Myelin is actually a physical material in your brain that connects tissue together, and it lets thoughts move faster from one thing to another. So it actually it feels like muscle memory, like your body knows what to do, but it's really it's in your brain, and it's having these huge paths of myelin to connect your neurons together. And then the other word he used was deep practice, and that's like it's very similar. If you're in the sweet spot, it's similar to deep practice. It's like, you ever train and in 10 minutes of training you've learned like a whole month's worth of stuff just because it was like perfect for you that time. You know what I mean?
Yep, I love that time when everything just clicks.
It's very rare.
Yeah, very rare
but
for me.
Some people, some coaches, some people have the ability to put that at a constant thing, to where they constantly put you in deep practice and you're able to get better a lot quicker. So that's discussed a lot in the episode as well. But just the importance of being able to fail and then to fail again and to fail better. Those are all. I mean, if you fail and quit and do something else, you're done.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're not learning. But the only way you're going to learn is by failing. I mean, we just got to, as he said, just keep getting back up. And I remember coaching me jiu-jitsu coach one time told me, you're in the best spot if you're the worst one in the room. And that always stuck to me. It's nice when I'm going to get tapped out all the time. I'm just going to keep learning and just getting better. My learning curve is going to be that much higher. That's
part of the beauty of being a white belt, because you're in that spot where everything is new and everybody could really help you get better. Further down the road, you might be in a spot where most people really can't contribute a lot to your game. It's harder to learn in that area, but just keep
plugging away.
Yeah, keep plugging away and keep finding those areas where it's hard for you to get better. And we do cover this about the positional sparring. If I'm rolling with 10 white belts today and that's all I have, I'm going to have some people start on my back. I'm going to have some people start in a triangle. And if I fail, I don't want to fail that way over and over again. I need to fail better.
Yeah.
I need to get further out of the submission. I need to fail in a different way to where I learn how to do, how to get out of these positions and to do better.
As you're talking about, as you get longer in the game, working with white belts, you may not have a lot of people that can help your game as much. But I find myself working with lower level people, putting myself in some really bad positions, or just working new parts of my game, and I find that's helped my game tremendously. It makes me open up new avenues, explore new positions, and I start out there and I just work my way up the chain, of talent till I can start hitting them on people my own level or better. And
there you go.
Then I know it's working.
So you failed multiple times, and you've worked up the chain failing, and little success, fail, little success, fail.
And that's what it is. Rarely am I ever gonna pick something up. I'm not the quickest learner. I don't move the best, so a lot of times I just don't pick it up that easy. I'm not one of those guys who can look at a jiu-jitsu book and just see it from the pictures. I have to go over and keep going over. I have to have somebody really conceptually explain it to me, and that's why I always talk about how I like Ryan Hall's videos so much. He's really just explaining instead of just hey, put your hand here, B, put your hand here, move your hips. He's talking about everything behind it, and that helps me learn. That's the way I do it, and everybody's different.
Absolutely. You mentioned that you're not one of the guys who could learn from a book and just walk in and do it. I don't think anybody really is. You need to do it.
I've still seen people pick it up. They just see a book, and the next thing you know, we're in class. They try it on me one time, and next thing you know, open roll, they're sweeping me with it. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
That's crazy.
I see something on the book or the internet. The next day, I try to practice on Byron, and I forget everything. It's like, okay, where's my hand go? Does my leg go here? I spend 5 minutes fumbling around, and then I just say, let's just go on to something else.
Yeah.
So.
And Jonathan talks a little bit about learning and how he uses YouTube to get better and advance his game. So we'll get to that pretty soon. We also have an article of the week. It is from blog.gameness.com. It's 5 things to focus on when teaching BJJ to children. The first, and I would say the biggest thing, is safety.
Safety. The parents are putting their kids into a school and definitely don't want to get the kids hurt. And if they're getting hurt, they're not going to love the sport.
Yep, and nobody wants to. You don't want to take your kids to places and watch them get hurt. I mean, that would be a quick way to get your kids out of jiu-jitsu. I mean, to watch another kid intentionally, armbar somebody and then, I mean, this is a sport that has some dangers to it, obviously. So you need to make the environment safe. You need to have a certain amount of kids on the mat, not more than they can handle. Come out a small space.
Yeah, I like it. He brings up about that. Make sure the kids on the mat, and then I also like what he says is, as an instructor, never turn your back to the kids. Always be alert. I thought that was a very good tip.
And it does drive me nuts at like a tournament. If you see some of the small tournaments, kids will get on the mat and they'll be like next to freaking heavyweights, and the kid will be playing on some iPad on the mat. Yes,
that's a recipe for disaster.
I can't stand that. I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but especially little kids.
Yeah.
Just anyway, that's different than a class anyway. But another thing he lists is balance. It's a great way to teach kids balance. Any martial art will help with that.
Oh yeah, yep. And I mean, just all the balance, the coordination. That's something they can use for everything. If they play baseball during baseball season or basketball, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is definitely going to help out in any sport you do.
Yeah, it'll help you get more in touch with your body and to become more coordinated and balanced.
Yep, get some strength, and can't beat that.
Another thing he lists, fun. That's a big one.
And he talks about playing games, to have fun in class. I've seen classes do, a little like crab walk soccer and what's that, King of the Ring or King of the Mountain and stuff like that. So. And I just see the smile on the kids' faces. But it's also teaching them basic movements.
Yeah, and you get some teamwork stuff in there too as well.
Which is another big trait that I don't teach you.
It's funny because when I'm not the best kids instructor. I'll say that right now. I don't have any kids, and I'm not real experienced with kids. But I'll teach a kids class if it's needed and if it helps out at the gym. It's been a while, but I would take a blue belt that is good with kids over a black belt that is not good with kids to teach a kids class.
Oh yeah. And especially with some of the more demanding moves, or kids just don't have as long an attention span. They're not going to pick up things as easily, and that's where somebody who can relate to the kids can get down to their level. You don't even need a ton of skills. A blue belt, even a white belt, has been training for a little while. But it's just like you said, if you can you've got to be able to relate to the kids and keep those kids' minds open. Because they're going to be wanting to go out and do their own stuff here shortly. You got to keep their attention span.
I'd go even further and say I'd take a 6-month white belt, some fundamentals, who's a kindergartner teacher, over the average black belt that has no kids. I mean, there's a huge difference in your ability to teach the children versus the amount of jiu-jitsu that you know.
Yeah.
It needs to be fun. Like
it has to be fun.
And I've done games and stuff during kids classes, and I'm looking at the parents. I'm thinking, oh, they're not mad at me. We're not doing arm drags or something like that. But in reality, if they are mad at me and the kid's begging to come back to class,
then you won. You won.
The kid wins. The kid's gonna. If the kid wants to come back to class, the kid's coming back to class.
You won. And all you got to do is, the parents may be looking like that, but if you look on the mat and you just see kids with smiles on their faces and And even some of the, adults waiting for the next class with smiles on their faces. It's over. You won. Everybody came out a winner that day.
Yeah, that's a big focus. I mean, it's important with adults too, but the kids need to have a good time, and you'll see that in a quality kids instructor. Discipline. A lot of parents bring in their kids to help teach them discipline. It's vital in martial arts.
Oh, it's definitely vital, and I mean it's a tough class. You're in there with a bunch of tough guys, and you need to obey the adults, obey your the other students, and as you were talking about earlier, not force an armbar and hyperextend a kid's elbow. You have to be a good teammate. So you learn a lot about discipline and paying attention, respect your elders, respect adults, respect your teachers.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu is not. It depends where you go, but it's not always huge on like the bow before you get on the mat and the bow to your instructor and stuff. But the parents that bring their kids in, if they don't do jiu-jitsu themselves, they're bringing their kids into a martial art. They don't know the culture of jiu-jitsu. And so they're like, well, this is really relaxed. Like, I wanted more of a structure, more discipline for my kid, which is, I mean, it's good to learn that as a kid. Shake hands before you start to roll with the kids. Shake hands after the end of the class. All these things help teach that character and some discipline. You
learn to be humble. Be humble in win and defeat. Always congratulate your opponent, shake their hand. Shake the opposing coach's hand. It's very important. It's not just for sports, but just to be a good kid and grow up in this world.
And the last thing is values for the kids on his 5 things to focus on. And we kind of tied that down, I think, with discipline.
Yeah, they tie together. It's just all going to help you in the long run.
He didn't mention anything about self-defense or confidence.
Actually, that's huge. Self-defense, confidence. Especially you hear a lot about bullying, in these days, and I think as you get confidence, hopefully you're not going to get picked on a lot. I think people can see that confidence, and, and boy, but that confidence doesn't just help you out, in jiu-jitsu. It's going to help you out in everything you do. Social settings, you're probably going to get better grades because of that confidence. So everything just goes through that. Confidence is a very important trait to have.
Yeah, I agree, and for kids and adults, I think jiu-jitsu gives everybody confidence.
I tell you, that's one thing jiu-jitsu's helped me with is confidence. When I first started, I am a lot more confident person, as Byron will tell you. He says I'm overconfident.
Well, we've got that interview with Jonathan Thomas coming up, guys.
Enjoy. It's a great interview, and I think you guys will all enjoy it as much as we did.
So here we go. All right, everybody. It's my honor to have Jonathan Thomas here with us on the phone. How are you today?
Doing good. Happy to be here.
Good. We're happy to have you. Could you introduce yourself to the people who may not know you yet?
All right. My name's Jonathan Thomas. I've been training at Alliance for the past since like 2009. I started training in St. Louis, Missouri under Rodrigo Vaghi. I was there up until purple belt, and then I moved to the Alliance headquarters with Jacare and Cobrinha at the time, and I've been training there ever since, now under Lucas here, and I've won the Pan Ams at blue, purple, brown, and then the World Championships at purple and brown belt. And now I just got my black belt 3 weeks ago, I think, and then I'm doing my first tournament at black belt at Worlds this year, so big step up. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, congratulations on your black belt. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
What was that like getting your black belt? Do you have a story that how they gave it to you?
Not really. I guess they really surprised me with it. There'd been talk about them giving it to me for a while, and they were supposed to give it to me last year before Worlds. And then I suffered a really bad back injury. I herniated a disc in my lumbar, and I couldn't walk for a few months. And then for probably close to 8 to 9 months, I could walk only 10 to 15 minutes at a time without pain. And so I just kind of took a real big break from jiu-jitsu for a year. And fortunately, about 4 months ago, it kind of all turned around and got better. So I started training a lot again. And then, without any warning, one day I was in class and Jacare just made a big announcement and gave it to me. So kind of wasn't prepared, but I'm happy to have it now. I didn't care much to get the belt before. It was never that important to me. And then once I got it, it was pretty cool. So I'm pretty happy.
That's cool. That's that'll be fun to watch at that level of competition. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, for sure. It's a big step up.
You have a nickname. Could you explain your nickname?
Yeah, around the gym, a lot of the guys call me Macarrao. I got it back in 2009. I was training when Cobrinha was the head coach here. I was training with Cobrinha, and he was saying that my legs were like spaghetti. I was a lot more flexible back then. And I guess one of the guys asked, like, how do you say spaghetti in Portuguese? And then, they said Macarrao, so it just kind of stuck. So ever since then, a lot of the guys call me that. It's really funny when the Brazilian guys come in, even the ones I don't know, like, they're always excited to talk to me, I think, just because they like to say Macarrao. So they're always like, Macarrao! And I don't even know the guys, but, so all the guys in Sao Paulo know me, but I think it's more just because of the name than anything.
What do you do off the mat for fun, other than, for fun for jiu-jitsu, but off the mat, what do you keep busy with?
I'm kind of, I got into rock climbing for quite a bit. Well, honestly, when I get into my jiu-jitsu mode, jiu-jitsu is really, my passion. So for me, if I'm not at the gym training, I like to go to Starbucks and I like to get my coffee and I just sit there and study competition footage for hours and take notes on competition footage and just really study. I mean, it's jiu-jitsu is really my hobby. It's not just my competition thing. It's my hobby. But of course I do other stuff outside that. I'll play games from time to time. Really was into rock climbing for a little bit and then just trying different stuff, hanging out with friends. When I was injured the past year, I started going out and with friends a bit and partying, because the last 5 to 6 years of my life pretty much been just pure jiu-jitsu, so you kind of miss out on that actually living a life and socializing and partying and stuff. So I think it's important to have balance in your life, and you can't just only do jiu-jitsu and not have a social life. So that kind of became a big part of my life again in the last year, and now I'm just really getting back into jiu-jitsu.
And John, you were talking about one of your hobbies outside the mat, watching YouTube videos, studying your competition. And you've been very successful, on the mat, winning numerous tournaments and the Worlds and Pan Ams. But were you a natural at this sport? Did you just come right in and, was your background as a high school wrestler or anything of that sort? I know you play a lot of bottom game, but did you just come in and just pick everything up quickly?
Yes and no. So I started training when the first martial arts I did, I was 14 or 15 in high school, and I started doing some traditional Goshin Jitsu self-defense type stuff. And then they had a judo class. I started doing that. And then I remember my first judo competition I ever did to compete in, and the guy who beat me got the Ippon of the Day award for the most beautiful throw by throwing me.
Man.
So I wasn't super natural at judo. But I got to brown belt in judo, and I knew all the throws, but it was different than actually applying them, because we'd always fit in and drill, but we wouldn't really get the good sparring on how to actually do the throws. So I was never really great at judo, but I really started watching the UFC, and then I really liked when I saw Royce Gracie, like a lot of other people. So I started training in my basement with friends. I'd have friends come over, and we would just watch the UFC, and then we would reverse engineer moves that Royce Gracie or some jiu-jitsu person did. So I taught a lot of it to myself. Then I started trying that stuff in the judo class, and I started getting arm bars and things like that in class. And then at the time I couldn't find a good jiu-jitsu gym, so I started wrestling my senior year of high school. And I wasn't a good wrestler or anything, but it taught me how to be a lot more tough and physically aggressive, so I got a lot out of wrestling. And then when I graduated high school, I started at Rodrigo Vaghi's in St. Louis, who's a really, really good team, especially in the Midwest area. So I started training there, and I was really fortunate to start there because they had really strong fundamentals. And that's something, the gym back then, they didn't have a lot of Spider Guard and De La Riva New Age Jiu-Jitsu, but the fundamentals were really strong. And I think that's something that back then I took for granted. like knowing how to do an armbar really cleanly, knowing how to do a triangle really cleanly, knowing how to recompose really well. Those things I think were really pivotal in the beginning of my career. Because like even now, like I'll see a lot of guys compete who know how to do like 50-50 and berimbolo and all these things, and I'll see them get a triangle and they can't finish a triangle, and things like that. And that's something that I always had really sound from starting there. But as far as like my early jiu-jitsu competition, I have to say I was pretty natural in the beginning. Like my first tournament, my goal was just to not get submitted. And I submitted everyone in my first tournament, and then I never lost a match as a white belt. I kind of just had this very natural knack for jiu-jitsu. Given I did a lot of judo before, and then wrestling, but for whatever reason, jiu-jitsu really clicked for me. And I actually have a theory about that. I really think that the reason some people have like a really natural skill in jiu-jitsu in the beginning and some people don't is that for whatever reason, like when we start sparring, like your guard is a very important aspect, especially if you don't have a wrestling background, because you spend a lot of time on your back. And some people, for whatever reason, will naturally get the feel for good recomposing, and some people won't. And the thing is, like, that early stage in your career is really important, because if in the first 2 weeks you kind of get the right feel for how you recompose, it will make it easier your entire career to develop that. But some people like learn wrong, or their just body doesn't pick it up naturally. And I see people that have been training for 5 or 6 years, and they know all these techniques, they know all this stuff they've learned, but there's still something fundamentally off in their recomposing, and it makes it so easy to pass their guard. And it's just something that you don't see many instructors address or try to fix for them, So I think that I was just really lucky, one of those people that picked recomposing up easily. But now, as a teacher, I spend a lot of my time trying to reverse engineer that and show people and correct them on how they should be recomposing.
You use the term recompose. Could you explain how that's different than escape, or how that's different than how you use that term?
Recomposing, I guess, can mean one of two things. Either the guy's trying to pass your guard, so he's like almost passed, got around your legs, and he's trying to secure side control is usually where people pass to. And your ability to stop that and recenter back to your guard, like either open or closed, but if it's open, like with them directly in front of you with both of your legs out, like free, like no legs trapped, not half guard, right? That's like your ability to recompose. Or like if you're in side control, your ability to escape from side control and get back to guard. That to me is the most important aspect in, especially in someone's early career in jiu-jitsu, because it's like in boxing, if you can't like slip a punch or at least block a punch, you're going to be getting hit all the time. So it doesn't matter how many cool punches you know or what you can do. If you're getting hit all the time, you're going to not have a very long career. It's the same thing in jiu-jitsu. People get so concerned with new attacks and ways to take the back and flashy submissions. But if you can't recompose well, you're going to get one attempt at your attack, and if you mess up, you get your guard passed. But if you're not very good at attacking, but you have great recomposing, you can mess up 100 times and then eventually get your attack on, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. You're big on training the right way. Mm-hmm. How would you describe that? People are trying to, everyone wants to train hard and get better and train smart, but describe your training process or philosophies?
Yeah, I think that I definitely see some other people in the sport now talking about this. Like, I've listened to a little bit of Kit Dale recently. I really like what he says. He seems like he's really in line with a lot of the philosophy I have on training. But I think, I don't know if it's kind of like an American mindset that everyone really wants to like work hard and like, just get on the grind and really, fight hard to be a champion. And of course, that's very, very important. But the truth is that, jiu-jitsu traditionally was a technique sport. If you watch like Hoist Gracie fight, right? He didn't beat Dan Severn because he just like wanted it really bad and, just pushed it hard. No, he beat Dan Severn because he knew more technical moves than he did. And that's what attracted me to the sport in the beginning. I didn't come to do jiu-jitsu because I wanted to be bigger, stronger, tougher, than my opponent and just beat them on grit. I wanted to do jiu-jitsu because I liked the idea that someone can be, really big and strong and tough. And even though I'm not as tough as they are or strong, if I'm smart enough and I know the right technical solution, I can beat them, and that's what always motivated me to train. So, as far as like my training style, a lot of it goes back to how I initially learned jiu-jitsu, which was on my own originally, So, I'm just a huge advocate of dealing with things that are relevant for your game. And I'm a big advocate of positional training. The way I view jiu-jitsu is I just view jiu-jitsu as a collection or a series of mini positions, like mini games, right? So, for example, you can be really good at opening the closed guard, right? So you're great. Anytime someone gets you in closed guard, you can defend their attacks and open the guard. But then someone puts you in spider guard, and you're terrible at defending spider guard, right? Or you're good at escaping the mount, but if you're, on top, you can't open the closed guard, right? So it's just, you can be good at one aspect of jiu-jitsu and terrible at another. And what defines how you do in competition is what games happen. Right, so certain people are very effective because they can always implement their game. So take, for example, someone who recomposes to close guard really well. They can just constantly get to close guard, and then they can submit everyone from their close guard. That guy is going to have a great career because he pulls guard. People, try to pass, they can't. He closes guard, he submits them. Now, someone else, you could have the best top game in the world. Like, literally, you could be able to pass Cobrinha, Marcelo Garcia just easily. Like, you could be so good on top. But if you don't have takedowns and you don't have a good guard, you'll go into competition and a high school wrestler could take you down and then just kind of hold you, and you couldn't do anything because you can't get on top. So to me, what matters is, I think that having a logical process to how you develop your game makes a big difference. Truth be told, when I won the blue belt Pan Ams the first time in 2007, a lot of the guys I was fighting, I know were like training more than me, training at top level gyms with like world champion black belts and things like that. And I went into the division, and I was going to college at the time, and I was maybe training 3 to 4 times a week, and probably I was in college, so I was even like going out and drinking. I didn't know anything about dieting right, and I went in there and I submitted everyone. I didn't submit everyone because I was tougher or because I was just like, I just wanted it really bad. I submitted everyone because, I just studied all the time. I knew the technique really well. When I was at school, if I had a break, I would just watch YouTube and study competition footage, see what people were doing, and I was just very technical about things. So kind of a long-winded answer, but as far as like my training now, it's really important to have good training partners who can push you and expose holes in your game. But a lot of what I like learn and do, I really I watch competition footage, and I look for holes in my game, and I search for fighters who are really strong at defending those things. So let's say I don't know how to pass spider guard well, right? Well, Leandro Lo is like one of my favorite guys to watch, and he's great at passing spider. So I watch competition footage of him fighting in people's spider guard, and then I get with a partner and we positional spar from spider guard. So I'll start in spider guard, and I'll say, okay, just try to submit me, go as hard as you can, try to kill me from your spider guard. And then we'll sit there and we'll fight through the position for 30 minutes, an hour, and we just keep stopping and trying new things and playing with stuff until I have enough experience in that position and know stuff that I can actually do it. And the thing about that is sparring doesn't lie. If you learn a move, a lot of people will go online and they learn a move and they're like, oh, that's a move that someone showed. And they'll drill it like 1,000 times. To me, that's just crazy because, if you've never done the move, you don't know whether it works. Sometimes people show moves online that don't really work. Or maybe you think you're doing it right, but there's actually a detail off that you don't realize. And then you're drilling it wrong, and you drill it 1,000 times wrong. So, the easiest way for me to implement moves into my game is to start sparring with it immediately in a positional setting. So if I want to learn to open the closed guard, I start in closed guard, and then I start trying to open it and have my partner resist. When I can't do it, we stop and keep adjusting what I need to do until I can do it. And that's how I kind of develop a lot of my game.
That is like perfectly set up with the interview last week with Daniel Coyle. I'm sure you've heard the expression like 10,000 hours or 10,000 reps.
Yeah.
And I asked him about that, and he said that came out with a book, Outliers, and And he said that hit like most sports communities really hard because everyone wanted to clock in and get their time in. And it's like it doesn't matter how much time you put in; it matters the quality of your reps, and then then having instant feedback about if you're doing it successful, and then if you're not, getting instant feedback on your mistakes and adjusting those many times to get that built in better. So I
absolutely agree with that. The 10,000 hour thing, a lot of people like to quote that and stuff, but I just think, of course, there's an element of truth to it, but it's a lot of, there's a lot more to it than that. You can't just go in and train 10,000 hours wrong. You're not going to get anywhere.
Absolutely, I agree with that entirely, and that's what we talked about that pretty extensively on last week's episode. So I'm glad that you tie in with what he was saying. That's interesting.
Yeah, and on that, like one more point about that, I think a lot of times people think of, when you think about pushing it and like working really hard, people think of just physically pushing it hard, but they don't take into account that for a lot of people, the mental aspect is hard, So to me, some people would say, oh, you're lazy because you just want to study technique and you don't want to be in there pushing it hard all the time. But, as someone who's had a really serious, brutal injury, I really respect the physical damage the sport can do to your body, and I was at a point where I thought I might not be able to walk right ever again, So, I know you can do a lot of damage to your body physically. To me, they may say that it's lazy to just try to do more studying rather than just always training really hard. But at the same time, I think there's a laziness in not wanting to study, because for some people it's easier just to push it physically because they don't want to sit there and go through the difficulties of the mental strain of going, well, what if the way I'm dealing with this position is completely wrong and I need to restart? I mean, that's really tough too. So I think a lot of times people underlook the toughness that is taken to push through the mental aspect and solve all those problems. It's like math. I have a math major, and a lot of people, when you do math going through school, will be like, oh, math's too hard. I'm not good at math. It's like, math isn't hard. It's actually really easy. It's just that most people don't want to take the hour, 2 hours it takes to sit there and understand it. So I do think that a lot of times, that mental toughness aspect should be applied towards mental toughness and thinking about your game and trying to evolve it and understand it, because it's not going to come to you in one day. It takes a lot of thinking.
Yeah, there's definitely a mental toughness and a physical toughness to the game, and it's easy to forget that mental toughness. Where do you think the current state of jiu-jitsu is at today with the different positions that people are doing and different strategies that are being implemented in competition? Yeah,
so I really love the evolution of jiu-jitsu, and I like how it's always evolving, and I'm a huge advocate of evolution. When I started jiu-jitsu, I started playing spider guard, and people were like, oh, don't play spider guard, it doesn't work. So I get that. But there's a few things that really bother me with the rules nowadays. One thing is I definitely think in the lighter weights, at least, maybe not the heavier as much, I think that something needs to be done about the rules for the guard, because I feel like the way jiu-jitsu is set up now is designed for the guard player. So, for example, it's much harder to play on top than it is on bottom. So most of my career, I was a guard guy. So what I would do is, I would pull guard, and I had a submission guard, which was a huge advantage because a lot of people are playing the game nowadays. So what happens is let's say, I pull guard, okay, and let's say I just have a sweep game. So if I pull guard, I sweep my opponent, I go on top. If I can't pass, he's going to sweep me back, and we kind of rotate back and forth. Someone might win by an advantage, okay? If I have a submission guard, I pull guard, the guy goes on top, I try to submit him. This is how my career went. And then if they pull guard, I would try to pass. I wouldn't do double guard pull. I would try to pass. And then, if I got swept, no big deal. Then if I passed, great. If I got swept, no big deal. And then I would submit them from my guard. So I was able to rely on my guard for submissions. Nowadays, what guys do is, because it's so, when you pass, you have to be able to pass everything. That's why it's so much harder. So, for example, if you're a spider guard player and you go into competition, you pull guard, you can just play your spider guard for the most part. right? If you go in there and you want to pass, your first match might be a spider guard player, and all he does is play spider guard. So now you have to be super good at spider guard passing to pass his spider guard. The next guy, he's a De La Riva player. So now you have to know how to pass De La Riva really well, right? The next guy likes to play collar sleeve. Now you have to know how to pass collar sleeve, and then so on, you know? So to pass, like, you have to be prepared for, like, all these different types of games, you know? And then, like, you know, as, you know, and this coming from a guy who used to be a big guard guy, and I still am, you know, like, you'll go into a match, and then all a guy has to do is lock you up in one position. He just has to wrap you up somewhere, tie you up in a really difficult to get out of spot, which is pretty easy to do with, like, you know, some, especially nowadays with, like, lapel wraps and, like, lassos and a lot of different spots, or 50-50. And guys can lock you up in a position, and they don't have to do much. You know, they can just kind of defend, and you see people do it. And, you know, they can just kind of defend and then wait and get that advantage. And then once they get an advantage, they can just kind of chill and wait. And then all of the burden is on you to unlock their position. So I just feel like it's something, my idea for what would be good for the sport is I would like to see a -1 point for pulling guard. Because what I think that would do is it would put the burden on the guy on bottom to actually have to sweep. Because nowadays, if you pull guard, you don't have to sweep. Guys work advantages. In Worlds 2012, I fought a really tough competitor, Andreas Bernovsky. And I'm not saying anything bad about the guy. He's got an amazing game. But I remember one point in the match, and this is when I realized how much jiu-jitsu had changed, was, you know, I always got away with before, if I was on top and someone would sweep me, I could go, well, they sweep me, but I can submit them back. So it was like I could fight back with my guard, too. So, you know, we double pulled, and then I went on top immediately, and I started trying to pass. So he put me in this De La Riva lasso position that you see a lot nowadays. The Meows play it. JT Torres plays it. It's a really tough spot to get out of. And normally I loop my hand out, but I had a really baggy gi that day, and it was really hard to loop my hand out. So I was really stuck in the position. So, you know, I was trying my best, and I didn't know the position as well as I should have, and he had an amazing guard. So I couldn't get through there, right? So there was one point where you know, he went for a sweep, and in my head I was like, you know what, like, I'm just going to let him take this sweep, and then, you know, he'll come on top, and then, you know, I can try to submit him, right? You know, because he was pretty far through on the sweep, and I thought they were going to give him an advantage. So, like, I'll just give him the sweep, and I'll try to submit. So then, you know, when it's time to come on top, he started to come on top, and then Lloyd Irvin is, you know, his coach at the time. And then Lloyd's like, no, stay on bottom. So then the guy refused to come on top, right? So it's like now he's in a point where he could come on top and progress the action, but he's just not going to because he took the advantage. And now he can just sit there and hold the rest of the match. So I think the solution to the problem would be a -1 point for guard pull, because what that would do is, like, if you had a -1 point for guard pull, I would still pull guard, because the intent of me pulling guard is I'm going to use it to submit you or to get on top because I want to pass your guard. The guys nowadays in my division, they don't want to pass. They don't know how to pass. Most don't have no idea, you know, with the exception of a few guys. Most have no idea how to pass. So what they do is, like, they just go, well, I'll take the advantage. Then I don't even need to know how to pass. So then they can just play their guard all the time and never even have to learn passing. But if you had to sweep to win the match, like 10 advantages won't win. You have to sweep. Otherwise, you're going to lose by 1 point. Then they're going to win the match if they sweep, but they have to stay on top. And I think that what that would do is it would force people to be well-rounded. You know, you can pull guard, but you got to sweep to win. And then when you sweep, you have to try to pass. And I think that would eliminate that, like, stalling back and forth with advantages. That's just a little theory I have.
That's it. I haven't heard that one yet, and that's an interesting way to tackle that, because when you change a small rule like that, it totally changes the way people come into the game to play it. And it'll change. It should change the way people train, but it'll probably change who actually is able to win. I mean, the people who could adapt to that rule.
I think the Meows are, like, amazing. They're like, really, those guys are just unbelievably amazing, right? So nothing bad to say about them. But if you implemented that rule, you could see them lose, like, in their weight at their division. Because what would happen is, like, you know, most guys, I mean, they just bear and bolo and take their back. I mean, they're awesome. But you know, you see some guys who can just kind of hang on, right? But they give up an advantage, and then the Meows aren't going to come on top, right? But if they had to come on top, then they would come on top. But then they could get swept back and lose at the last second, you see? So I think you would see a lot of guys that are really killing it right now that would really have to change and evolve their game and have to embrace passing. Because the way it is now, you don't need to know passing, right? Like if you're like a featherweight, there's almost no sense in it. I mean, I'm very devoted to the idea of learning to pass. So I made a decision a while ago before I fought Andreas Bernovsky, because I knew I was going to have that match, and I knew that, you know, it was probably going to be a double guard pull. And, you know, I made a decision. I was like, you know, like maybe I'm going to get submitted if I try to pass because he's got a good guard, you know, but like I would rather get submitted and do what I believe in, trying to actually pass and trying to progress the action, than I would to sit there and possibly win by like an advantage from this double guard pull kind of thing, you know? And it just, you know, and I remember going into the match, so like, and my family was watching, all my friends were there, and like being like, man, like I feel so much pressure right now because I don't want to get submitted in front of them, you know, because at the time I wasn't a very strong passer, you know, but then at the same time I was like, man, but I know it's the right thing to do. So I tried it. I lost that match by an advantage. But after that match, like my passing became so much better. Like I ended up fighting Andreas again, and a few months later, and I was able to pass. He totally ended up taking his back, but you know, I was able to pass. But I know if I hadn't made that commitment with myself of going, you know what, like I'm going to be willing to lose because I want to learn how to pass, I never would have got to the point that I could have passed someone's guard like him. And since then, it's just like my whole jiu-jitsu game has completely changed and developed from that, because I did not want to give up on that ideal. And it's interesting to note, too, I talked to Andreas at Pan Ams this year, and he really kind of came to the same conclusion as me, and he won the Pan Ams. And I watched his finals match, and it was awesome. You know, he went out there, and, like, the guy double pulled, and he just went on top. And even if he didn't know what to do in every position, he just stayed true to it and kept trying to pass, and he ended up winning. So he was the brown belt Pan Am champion this year at light feather, so I was really happy to see that.
I know you just recently got awarded your black belt and you're looking forward to competing, but what are some of your other goals in the sport?
But really, you know, my thing is, I'm not, like, competition, of course, is important for me, but, like, I really thought about it recently. Yeah, like, for me, like, my reason for training isn't to be a champion exactly, because I really thought about it when I was younger. You know, I was like 17. I was just like, oh, I want to be a champion so bad. It means everything, you know. But I thought about it, and it was like, you know, what if being a champion meant that, like, you know, especially because you do damage to your body by training a long time. You know, what if being a champion meant I had to learn how to master, you know, us both being in 50-50 with our lapels wrapped up around each other in the perfect way to score that little extra advantage so that I can be the champion because I got this extra advantage. You know, is that really, to me, worth 2 years of studying some position like that where you're kind of tied up? It's just like, no, you know, I realize the reason I train, you know, of course I want to try to be the best, but, you know, I want to do jiu-jitsu that I'm proud of. I want to do jiu-jitsu where, you know, I'm trying to pass the guy's guard. I'm trying to submit. I'm sweeping, you know. I don't want to play, you know, a game, you know, just like a little tactic. I don't want to spend, like, you know, years trying to develop some, you know, little tactic and little trick to get that extra, you know, extra oomph to win. So for me, what I really want is, you know, I'm going to be competing probably like another year or so, and then I'll probably be like retiring from competition. And what I really want to do is I want to eventually start developing, like, you know, a gym or, you know, some sort of movement where I'm getting people to really embrace smart training. And I really just want to make, like, my life's passion in my career, you know, understanding jiu-jitsu. Like I talked about with the positional sparring stuff, you know, I really want to, you know, just really have the time to sit there and go, you know, I'm going to spend 3 months understanding, you know, how to pass the De La Riva and just really immerse myself in that, understand all the different ways guys can control in De La Riva and all the different passes, and just like immerse myself in that. And then I want to go, you know, I want to spend a couple of weeks just opening the closed guard and just constantly be evolving and learning to get better at these little mini positions so that I can eventually, you know, be teaching that. I would like to be able to, like, go travel and teach seminars on just specific subjects, like, oh, come to my seminar on passing the De La Riva guard. And then people can come in and I can really give them this just, like, really well thought out, organized, structured lesson on how to pass the De La Riva guard or how to open the closed guard and things like that, you know? Like, I'm very much into the sport, you know? It's not so much for me about titles, you know? Although I would like to have that too. I mean, who doesn't want that?
That's good. It's a great perspective on it, and your future it sounds bright.
Hey, John, I know you've competed in a lot of tournaments. What would be advice for a first-time jiu-jitsu artist doing their first tournament? What advice would you give to help them out?
So I have a kind of a different viewpoint, I guess, on people's like first competitions and what makes people successful than a lot of other people. I think, the bottom line is that, technique and skill level really matters the most. So I hear a lot of people reading sports psychology stuff, and I think that stuff is really important. But sometimes I think people take some of the emphasis off of the actual technique. And what I mean by that is, like, my first competition, my goal when I went to compete was, I know I'm going to lose for sure. I'm going to lose. That's for certain. I knew that, right? And my goal was just to not get submitted my first match. And then I submitted everyone, right? I guess my point with that is I find a lot of people trying to do a lot of ways to convince themselves that they're going to win and stuff like that. And I always found the best thing you can do is just try not to think about anything. Like, when I compete, I literally just completely clear my mind, and I trust that I'm as good as I am. My technique is as good as it's going to be that day. Like, if you rate your skill level on a scale of 1 to 10, if I'm an 8, then, I'm an 8, right? So I'm just going to not think. I'm going to clear my mind and then just fight, and then I'll perform it close to an 8. But I find when people really try to start thinking about all sorts of things, and they really, I find that people clutter their minds a lot with a lot of stuff before a match, trying to think about doing a certain thing, trying to visualize a certain thing, and they start to get stressed out because they feel like there's something they're supposed to be doing. When in reality, in my opinion, you should have already done everything you were supposed to do before that, right? Because, if you're fighting someone and they're just much better than you are, there's no way you're going to think yourself into being better than they are. They're just better. And then, you'll probably lose if you fight someone who's significantly better than you. But you can for sure be really good. And because you're overthinking stuff and trying to think of too much, you can stress yourself out and make yourself perform even worse than you actually are. And I think that's a real problem. So for me, what's always helped me is just really clearing my mind and just trusting in my level and thinking, the worst case, I lose. If I lose, I lose. It's not a big deal, I'm just going to perform, as I do in the gym, and, hopefully that's good enough. And really, the real focus should be on your technique. And I think the reason that some people are successful early and others are not is because of how imposable your game is. So, for example, let's take a really good wrestler. Okay, if you take a really, really good wrestler, he's like a Division I, NCAA wrestler, and then he's got a decent top game and can defend most attacks, right? He can go into a competition and win. He can even beat some really high-level guys doing that, right? Because his game is imposable. For a lot of guys, though, they don't come from a wrestling background, so they don't have good wrestling. So for that kind of a person, the most important thing is your guard, because you're going to, even if you can, you have okay takedowns, chances are you're going to fight one guy in that division who can take you down, and if you don't have a good enough guard to sweep him or submit him, you're going to lose the match. So the people that I see who are not wrestlers that are really successful early on really focus on their guard. I think you see that with most phenoms, like Keenan Cornelius, the Meows, Mendez, Ryan Hall. You think of any big up and coming star, right? Pretty much they're always like a guard guy, right? So I think really emphasizing your focus on your technique and really developing an unpassable guard, really focusing on your side control escapes, your recomposing, and having an unpassable guard, and then getting a few good attacks. If you can get that down, you will have a lot of success in competition because you can always pull guard, But if you don't have the takedowns, then you got to go guard. So I think really, people, I think they try to psych themselves up too much before a match. And for me, what always helped was just really focusing on my technique, being as good technically as I can, and then just trusting that my technique is going to work on the day it needs to. And if I lose, I lose, Just I don't think there's much you can really do to think, if you're going to fight Mendez, there's no psychological thing you're going to think that's going to make you win. You're either good enough or you're not,
Yeah, definitely. I love what you're saying there. Overthinking, leads to stressing yourself out, getting tired, and not performing to your best there. And getting tired, I know you focus on technique a lot, what would you recommend, besides, just the straight grappling to build your cardio up, before a tournament? Do you do any cross training, any running, lifting, or do you just stick with rolling and repositioning?
So two things with cardio. One thing that I do like to do, I haven't done it as much recently. I was doing it a lot more before when I was competing. I'm a little bit scared to do it now with my back. But I used to do high intensity intervals on the treadmill, like Tabatas. So I do like 20 seconds on, like a full sprint on full incline on the treadmill, 10-second break, full sprint, 10-second break. That really builds that, like, I'm not a sports science guy, but I had read a lot about that. I had some people suggest it to me, and it seemed to work really well. It builds that, like, the cardio for, like, explosive motions, and then you get a short break, and then explosion, and then short break. That seemed to help a lot. That being said, I do think a lot of issue with cardio, I'm a big technique guy, but a lot of it comes back to technique and maintaining, like, your calm in a match. If you're really technical and you know where you are in a match, you conserve a lot more energy. So I'll give you an example. Like, if you're playing guard, okay, and let's say you like spider guard, okay, and you're in a match and you get to spider guard, and you know spider guard really well. You know it in and out. You know how to hold it. You know how the guy can try to pass. You know how to defend, how he can pass. When you get to that position, you become calm. Right? And then you're like, okay, I can relax here. You can catch your breath, and your heart rate stays low. If you notice, a lot of people will have great cardio in the gym. They'll compete, and then they're gassed out in a minute, and they're like, man, I need to work my cardio more. But the issue really wasn't the cardio there, because they can train for, an hour straight in the gym, but they get gassed out when they compete. That's not an issue of their cardio. That's an issue of their heart rate getting too high, and that is related to staying calm, not overthinking, but also, to me, trusting in your technical knowledge really allows you to calm down. When I'm competing and I get one of my solid positions, I get a lasso and a spider hook, right? For the most part, I know most people don't know how to get out of that. So I get there and I feel calm. I'm relaxed. I can breathe. If you watch videos of me competing, you'll see me get that position, and you can just see on my face, like, I'll talk to my corner, and you can tell I'm as calm as can be. And that really, really helps your cardio. It's the same thing when you're passing. If someone puts you in a position and you don't know what to do now, you panic, and your heart rate elevates, your cardio goes downhill because you're panicking and you don't know what to do. As soon as you know what you're supposed to be doing, your energy is directed, you stay calm, and you don't gas out. So, of course, conditioning matters a lot too, but I do think for the average person, especially new people, it's usually not knowing where they are, not knowing what position they're in, leads to a lot of wasted energy and a lot of, like, extra nerves that saps your cardio. So to me, the most important thing in jiu-jitsu is always, even if you don't know what to do, people need to take time to know where they are. When you're fighting, if you're stuck in a position, always take a look at the grips. Like, okay, what grip does he have? He has my sleeve and my ankle. Okay, I don't know what to do here, but I'm going to study afterwards, and I'm going to learn what to do here. You need to constantly know where you are. When you know where you are, what grips your opponent has on you, then you can, like, be calm and slowly develop answers for that, and that builds calm in a match and makes you feel comfortable fighting. You can see that with all the top guys.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've really noticed when I've watched some of your videos. I thought that was really impressive when I saw how calm you were. And like you said, I've seen you talking to your corner, and it's just like, It almost seems like, hey, another day in the park. You've been there so many times. You're so comfortable there. And that's something I've really loved when I watch your game there. And,
yeah, I appreciate it.
No problem there. And, we also like to always ask, kind of how you were as a blue belt. Blue belt is a tough belt. You just, got the first milestone. And I know from talking to you earlier that, it sounded like you were incredible as a white belt, never lost in a tournament there. But how did your game evolve when you became a blue belt?
So more or less, blue belt was very similar to white belt for me. The thing that made me successful early, I was really fortunate. When I started jiu-jitsu, early on, like the first week or the second week, I had one of my friends who trained there, John Minke, his dad, Steve Minke. was like an older guy. He was like in his 50s at the time. And he was always at the gym helping people. And he taught me, you know, when someone's passing your guard, you need to take your outside leg and you need to kick it over and use that to recompose. And when he told me that, it just clicked. And I started doing that. And then I developed this really natural recomposing, right? So what made me successful from white belt all the way up to really even black belt was my recomposing. People couldn't pass my guard. So when I transitioned from white belt to blue belt, I really had very little difficulty because my recomposing was already really good. I was one of those people who was very natural at it, and people just couldn't pass my guard. So I would go into matches, and I wouldn't even know a lot of attacks necessarily. The guys would just keep trying to pass my guard, and I would just recompose. They can't pass. And then I would land in a submission. Sometimes I don't even know how I got to the submission. I would just land in it. Nowadays, I know the positions better, so I'm setting up what I do. But back then, I had recomposing, so stuff would happen. You know, I just scrambled and ended up in submissions. But for the most part, like as a blue belt, my first tournament I won. I think at blue belt I lost 2 matches. I lost one in the absolute of my first blue belt tournament. I got my guard pass, actually. It was the first time in competition I had that happen. I kept trying to triangle this like 280-pound wrestler, and my legs weren't long enough, and I didn't have a good sweep game at the time. So then he would pass off my triangle, then I'd recompose and try it again. So and then after that, I won pretty much all my competitions, and then I did my first Pan Ams in 2006 at blue belt. I did it at lightweight, and I fought a guy from Alliance, Chase Wheaton. And he passed my guard, and he was, at the time, the best guy I'd ever fought in competition. He was awesome. So he passed my guard, and then I think I swept him once, and then the time ran out. I lost to him, and then I just stayed really focused and came back the next year, and then that was the first time I won Pan Ams, and that was 2007 blue belt, and then same thing more or less at purple belt and brown belt. And it all comes back to the same thing. If you watch my matches when I was competing, one year I'd be doing spider, the next year I'd be doing a little more butterfly, one year I'd be into X guard. But the thing that was always there was my recomposing, and that's why I always did well.
When you're recomposing, is there, like, if someone's about to pass my guard, I could try to fight that for another 20 seconds, like with a little sliver of hope. Or I could say, okay, you pass, and then I bring my arms in. I try to push, try to get my recomposure back as quickly as possible. Versus just fight the pass until I'm like he passed, and now I'm out of position with my legs and my arms. Is that you kind of like at one point say, okay, time to stop fighting the pass and it's time to start recomposing. Does that make sense? The way it?
I would say kind of. So when someone's passing, one thing that I would say. I could do an entire podcast on just recomposing probably. I mean, it would be easier if I was in person. But, a few things that stand out to me. One big one is that when people, one big thing that people do wrong and why they have a hard time when they get passed is they hang on to whatever grip they're playing too long. So say you're playing spider guard, you're holding both sleeves, okay, you're attacking. Now you mess up somehow, you lose your feet in the biceps, the guy starts passing. People will hang on to both sleeves until the bitter end. Then the guy ends up in side control, completely locked in on them. They're holding the sleeves. Their arms are out of position. They're completely locked down. One thing that kills guys is that when they start losing a position, they won't accept that they lost it and let go of the grips. If you let go of the grips, then when someone starts passing, you can push on their shoulders, push on their shins, use your forearm to push on their neck, use your elbow to block their hips or their ribs and start recomposing, getting your legs tight. The guys will just hang on to these grips too long and they end up in terrible spots. That happens a lot because guys will learn positions like spider guard too early. And they haven't developed sound recomposing, and then they just become their defense is dependent on their position, not on their recomposing. So for me, because of the way I developed, with most of the guys I was fighting at like purple and brown belt even, I could not have spider guard. I could have no grip. And without any grip, just sit there and let people try to pass, and they couldn't pass. Whereas most guys' defense is dependent on getting their position. So if they have 50-50, if they have spider guard, if they have closed guard, they can hold you. But then if they lose it, they're in trouble. Now going back to your question more of like at what point should you surrender the pass and start defending? That kind of depends on, like, if you have the cardio, really, you should fight it until the bitter end. I wouldn't turtle. but keep trying to fight. And then if he gets all the way in and he establishes the points, then take your time, wait 10 or 12 seconds or 20 seconds, catch your breath, and then remount your defense again. But you should fight until those passes are awarded, because if you're defending properly, you shouldn't be losing anything by continuing to defend. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think
definitely,
so.
Definitely. Fight, keep fighting, and don't let it happen as long as.
And bail on the grips. Yeah, bail on whatever sleeve grip, collar grip you have, and just start pushing on shoulders, knees, shins, and get your knees tighter to your chest. It's hard to explain that through like just a podcast. It's something you really have to be in person.
It makes sense.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, you're not continuing to play that same guard as they nearly pass. You're changing to like a recompose mode where your hands are positioned to. You're going to get the guard back in a few seconds.
Yeah,
but
correct.
Create space to get the legs in there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, watch Keenan Cornelius, watch Leandro Lowe, watch like Cobrinha's so tight with his positions, you almost never see him out of position. Keenan, Lowe, Meows, they're really tight with their positions, But like those guys, you watch those guys compete. Or watch me. I think I have a match online. I win the match by omoplata. It's like 2.5 minutes or something. But it's a really good example of like the guy just keeps breaking my grips and backing away, and he's just doing really fast pace and moving a lot. I think it's that Simone Franceschini or something, some guy from Italy, and he's just very fast. He's very aggressive, good passer, and I just can't get grips. But, you see I'm just very confident with my defense and just defend. And then eventually I get my grip and lasso, and then I start attacking from there. One last thing on that. I think a lot of times with recomposing, if you don't have like a guard that you're confident in, it's a lot harder to recompose. And what I mean by that is, let's say if I get to spider guard, I know I can hold you and catch my breath, okay? If I do that, then I know, like, even if you're passing and I'm just, like, super tired, right, I know, like, if I could just hold on for 10 seconds and establish spider guard, I can catch my breath, right? That gives you hope, right? But if you don't have a good position, like a good open guard position, like spider, De La Hiva, or maybe you're good at getting the close guard, if you don't have some position that you can lock that guy up in and catch your breath, then you're going to be hopeless. You're going to be like, why should I even defend? Because it's just going to be more of the same thing. I'm just going to keep getting more and more tired. Just, fuck it. I'm just going to let him pass and relax. So it's like if you drop someone in the middle of the ocean and you just tell them, you're 5 miles from shore, they'll probably make it, even if they're not in good shape, because they want to live. They know if they do it, they can make it. But if you drop them in the middle of the ocean and they have no idea where they are, they're just in the middle of the ocean, they're not going to make it very long because they just don't have any hope. So you got to have like hope for a position that you can get to, that if you get there, you can hold and catch your breath.
The whole game will reset for you, and you're back into where you're comfortable and you're.
Yeah, exactly.
It
and
goes
not
back
only
to,
can you attack there, but you can catch your breath and recover.
And like I think you were saying before, your heart rate's going to drop because you're comfortable where you are. Like the match where you were looking at your coach and you knew you were in a good spot. It's like the same place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, you're tired, but you're also tired because your heart rate's up just from the stress levels. Back in your position,
absolutely.
Oh, I'm fine, I'm relaxed, I'm going to do okay. It's not a big deal.
Absolutely. Leandro Lowe is a guy who's just excellent at that. His passing is very different from say a Cobrinha passer or like a Lucas passer, who are amazing passers, right? They're very more pressure and they go through your position, they're tight. Lowe just gets out of all of your positions. If you get to De La Hiva, he's knee cutting you immediately. You go to spider, he's throwing your leg. And even if he doesn't get an immediate clean pass, it's like you never establish a position. So when people are playing guard on Lowe, the whole time they're just scrambling for something and they can never establish a position because he gets out of all the positions so easy. And then you just see people, that's why when he fights people, they're just he ends up passing them 8 or 9 times and winning by 50-0 and stuff because they just can't establish anything and they just get worn out.
Definitely an amazing competitor, and with that sort of pressure, that constant passing pressure, it's it's no place to be.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you help? You've said it before. You're more of a guard player. How do you help a new student to find their personal game, or do you just you focus a lot on repositioning and then let them find it from there, or do you help them strategize? And
so I guess the thing is, there's a difference between building a strong jiu-jitsu fighter and then building a strong competitor, right? So it's like, are you investing in long-term or are you investing in short-term results? Because, like, let's say someone comes in and they're a wrestler, right? And I know they're going to compete in 2 months, and I'm developing a strategy for them to win a tournament in 2 months. It's going to be different on what I tell them to do if I'm just trying to tell them to win than as if, like, I was trying to build their game on a long-term basis for, like, 2 years to make them a better fighter overall. So would your question be more, like, for how do you develop how do you develop a smart short game strategy for
I would say a more longer term, like just development and further along in the sport, like a couple of years down the road. And I don't want to spend time developing my game on things that in 2 years aren't going to do me any good. Does that make?
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, and that comes down to, like, people playing to win tournaments versus, like, really being passionate about jiu-jitsu. So what I would tell someone if they want long-term development is you need to start embracing understanding positions, right? That's all. When you start training that way, it's so much easier. When you just go, okay, I'm not good at opening closed guard. Let me just, let me have fun learning how to open closed guard and just look at everything as a learning process and give yourself a mental pass on anything outside of what you're working on. So, like, if I'm on top in closed guard and I'm trying to open it, just go in there and then just try to work on whatever opens you're using. And, if you get caught in an armbar, like, oh, how did you do that? Learn it and just really immerse yourself in one position, right? And you may fight. You can get to the point where you're a white belt, but even if you fight a black belt, you get so good at opening closed guard that you can beat them in that. They may kill you everywhere else, but you can always open the closed guard. You see what I mean? And then what you do is you just take one position at a time, and then you develop that, and then over time you have an answer for everywhere. So for someone who's newer, the positions that are going to be relevant are going to be escaping side control, escaping mount, escaping back, although if you don't really turtle, that happens less often. Escaping side, escaping mount, and then just maintaining open guard. Learning how, if you're on your back with your legs in the air and someone's just throwing your legs around trying to pass, how to maintain that, how to, like, just not get your legs thrown aside and then run around, If you watch, like, old school, like, Gracie stuff, that you always see the guys on the back with their legs looping and stuff like that. You need to learn how to defend from your back, not let the guy pass easy, and do your common escapes. Those are the first thing you should be focused on. Then, develop a strong closed guard attack. Everyone should know that well, right? Then start developing a strong open guard position. I think De La Riva, and when I say De La Riva, I'm referring to holding the ankle with your hand and putting a De La Riva hook in. So learning how to go from that to an offense, and then, like, maybe learning, like, a lasso and spider guard control, because those are the two easiest positions to get to from open guard. If you're fighting and you're on your back and the guy's coming at you, if he steps too close, grab his ankle, you're in De La Riva. And then you can develop an offense from there. If he's keeping his legs back and he's leaning in with his arms, you can tie him up in spider or try to close your guard, So develop that baseline recomposing one position at a time, and then develop, some attacks from De La Riva, some attacks from closed guard, some spider, and then take one position at a time and kind of work in phases,
Yeah, I really like what you're saying there. It seems like a lot of places when you come in and you're just learning offense, you're learning an arm bar, you're learning a triangle. I like, the very first thing you said, let's learn some escapes from side, a back control from mount. And really that's, like you said, when I first started, that's where I was always getting caught. Somebody was always mounted me. But the only thing I really knew how to throw up an arm bar from the guard, but I couldn't get there. So that's great advice that you just gave us.
I think that's less frustrating for the student, because if I'm stuck in side control and all I know is a mount attacks, I have nothing to do. I don't even know how to start to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, of course.
But if I have some objectives from these bad positions, I could try to do my moves, even if they're not finishing moves and they're not. I could have something I could do, and that's encouraging. It shows your progress.
For sure. And it makes it a lot easier on your ego because, everyone says, oh, don't have an ego. And that's true. Not having an ego helps tremendously. But the bottom line is everyone has a little bit of an ego. I promise you, if Mendez is training at the gym and a white belt catches him in front of the class, he's going to be upset. People have egos. It's true, but when you train that way, it gives yourself like a mental pass a little bit where like the student, if he's just like, I'm really working my side control escapes, right? So, anything outside of side control, you try, just kind of go on autopilot. And then when the guy almost passes, just, okay, whatever, I'm just going to work my side control escape. The guy gets around, and then you can kind of like, you can, even if you lie to yourself a little bit, you can be like, oh, I'm just working my side control escapes anyway, so it doesn't matter. It kind of allows you to calm down and not get so upset about the wins and losses of like, oh, I got swept today, because all you're concerned about is learning on your side control escape, right? When you can really get that down and you start judging your win and loss of the day off of what did I learn in the position I'm trying to develop, then you really start progressing, and it makes it a lot easier on your ego, and you don't stress as much about going to class. Like if I go to class and I'm just thinking, okay, it's going to be a lot of wars today, just fighting really hard. Like I kind of don't want to train. It just feels really stressful. But when I go in there and I'm just like, man, I can't wait to really work this De La Riva position and see how it's going to develop, that really motivates you.
I totally agree. That it gives you something to work towards. It doesn't make each role just some random training practice. It gives you a direction to aim for.
For sure.
How much of your training is positional sparring versus rolling? I mean, when I wanted positional spar, it seems like a lot of times the guys will, that's exhausting. That's hard, right? We're not talking about just like drilling. We're talking about getting in this position and just like almost like we're rolling, but then once that position dissolves, we're back in that same position. We're doing it again and again. It's like it's hard work, right?
Yeah, it is, and it's not. It's both. It's like sometimes you'll do positional training. Like if you do it in a gym format, it's like, someone's in the center and people keep rotating through. But a lot of times when I do it, I like to do it with a friend and we have like a computer and iPad next to us watching a match. And then it's like you have constant breaks, So I don't know. It's like a different mindset. Like
okay.
It's not like this intense. I mean, of course it's intense, but something happens when you're intellectually stimulated. The training is different. Like you can do it longer. So I've sat there with my friend Brian Calloway, who trains here. I remember training for Worlds in 2011, and sometimes I would just go over to his house because I was run down from training, and instead of training for the night, I would go to his house and we would order a pizza and eat pizza and just do positional sparring for like 3 or 4 hours while watching like TV, eating pizza, and watching jiu-jitsu doing positional sparring. And it sounds ridiculous, but man, we developed some amazing techniques and things that made me win a world title just while doing that. So you can do like 3 or 4 really hard like kind of rounds like that, and then when something goes wrong, you guys can stop for a minute, 5 minutes, and kind of discuss what should you do differently. Go back to the video, see what some high level guy is doing there, and then go and try it again, and then go and try it again, and then you stop, chill for 30 minutes, talk, and then go try it again, and then you just doing it all the time. It's like is a difference between when you're doing something for fun versus when you're doing it because you have to, right? So like if you're doing it for fun, like you look at like how cats learn to fight. Like look at like a cub lion, right? They play. Right? They just play with each other. That's all they're doing. They're just playing, right? So I find when you have this really serious feel for it, you don't get as good. When you're really playing with it and you're just enjoying learning that position, just having fun in that position, you have ups and downs of the intensity level of the sparring, and you can do it for like 3 hours at a time sometimes, and you will learn in like one session what could take like months or years sometimes, honestly.
You've spoke about learning jiu-jitsu through YouTube videos. Do you prefer, and what are the differences between watching like a tournament tape or footage and watching somebody teach a little instructional? Which one do you prefer to learn by, and why?
Oh, absolutely competition footage. For the most part, instructionals, just like I never watch. I used to when I started, and there is some good instructionals out there for sure. Ryan Hall does really good ones. Like you can tell when someone's really like he's trying to put their game out there and really like articulate to you like how they do it. There was a really good one I saw that really helped me early on was De La Riva Guard by William Bittencourt, which is I don't even know who that guy is. It's some random black belt. I mean it defined my entire De La Riva game when I was a blue belt. So I learned all my De La Riva Guard from that. Instructional in a lot of ways, like an introduction. So I'm not saying all instructionals are bad, but I've definitely seen a lot of instructionals where like people just show a lot of stuff and it's not really in an organized manner. And then, you miss so many details when you don't see people compete. Like you wouldn't believe how just like holding the pant a different way can make a big difference. Like grabbing it horizontally or vertically can make a difference. When you grab down the back passing half guard, do you grab like parallel to their spine or do you grab perpendicular to their spine? Things like that can make a huge difference. And a lot of times like those details are left out. And when you watch competition footage, you see like where these moves fit a lot of times. And it works because someone swept someone with it for sure, right? You just saw him do it, so it works. And then you can see like, oh, well, he did it from this position. You see like what the guy was trying before, and it's more organic. And then even it's really interesting. Like humans have this amazing ability to learn by mirroring, right? So even without you logically understanding, just watching someone enough, you will subconsciously start mirroring them. I read it somewhere. They're talking about like monkeys learn that way. They have like mirror neurons or something, and it's just like they just see something and they can see like another animal use a tool or another monkey use a tool, kind of, and they can kind of do that, So just watching like someone compete a lot in a certain way, you will subconsciously pick up all these weird little details. Sometimes you even pick up like their nervous tics, like really, like you'll if like you're watching someone pass all the time, like, and they just kind of move their body in some way, you'll start doing it, and sometimes that little stuff that you don't realize will make a big difference, So I just really like to pick someone who's really good at something, and I completely emulate them. Right, everything. Even if I know there's another way to solve the problem, but they don't do it, I will not do it the other way. I only do it the way they do it. The reason is because what that does is if you let's say I'm trying to pass De La Riva, and then some guy, and then the guy is doing a certain pass, and then the guy's defending the pass I'm trying to do, right? If I know a counter for that, but I don't see the guy I'm studying use that counter, I will not use that counter because I want to understand structurally how he's doing everything he's doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So then what you do is that, after you reach a certain point, you're going to kind of feel, I feel like I have a good hold or a good understanding of how this guy's doing this stuff. I'm going to pick a new pet project, which may be opening closed guard. And then maybe you'll pick someone else to emulate for that. Now, of course, eventually you do want to start, becoming independent and individual. You don't want to just be a clone of everyone else. So, but you shouldn't really jump into that individualistic part much until you get really higher level, because I see people with that all the time trying to be creative, but it's like they're blue belts or they're white belts and they have all these ideas. And it's like, maybe you're right, but you should just ride the coattails of all these other people who've already figured all this out until you get close to their level. And once you're close to their level and have a good understanding, then if you want, you can start trying to branch out I think I like this grip more for this reason. And then you're going to start defining yourself. And then that's when you start breaking into the new level stuff where you become a game changer, like a Mendez or a Cobrinha or Marcelo Garcia or Lowe, something like that. You do that once you reach that top level, but you don't want to be like a white belt and be like, I'm developing a new guard. That's not going to go well. I guess it can, but
it's unlikely to.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You have taught us so much today, just talking. I feel like my game has become so much better, just focusing on technique, repositioning. I love, talking about that quote, learn everything there, different combinations, But, and then we've also been lucky enough, Byron and I, to attend a seminar from you, and we learned a ton there. How would our listeners go to contact you to try to set up a seminar or maybe even go down to Atlanta and get some private training with you?
Contact me through Facebook is probably the easiest way. I guess you can find me on Jonathan Thomas Facebook. I guess it's kind of a common name. I'm on like the Alliance Friends. So if you go to Alliance Facebook page, the official Alliance Facebook page, I would be on there. So anyone who wants to contact me in that network, just message me on Facebook. I'm always available there. And then, yeah, I'm always open for seminars. I think my seminars, just to talk about it a little bit, are a little bit unique, I think. I think a lot of seminars, what people offer is the person comes in and they show just a lot of techniques, and then people learn techniques. I'm very big on sparring. Like, I'm not the kind of, I don't like to show people like one technique and then have them drill it 1,000 times and then go. I'm very big on like picking 2 or 3 positions, and then I show a lot of techniques in those positions, and my goal is to make people overall understand what that position is about. And then I do lots and lots and lots of positional sparring during the seminar, where I walk around coaching people while they're sparring in the position, and then I make them actually apply those moves in sparring and show them how fast you can actually learn and apply something. So in my seminars, I really often have people like taking the techniques they learned and using them effectively in sparring at the end of the seminar, as opposed to giving people a bunch of techniques and then good luck trying to do it in the future on your own, right? I think that's a very missing point with the way a lot of people teach, is they just show techniques and then there's no like sparring and application. So I think the most beneficial thing that I offer in my seminars is that I pick a position, I go over the nuts and bolts of what makes that position work, and then I have people spar there, and then I start correcting the issues when they're there. Like, oh, you got to hold the sleeve this way, you need to point your hand this way, you need to grab the leg here, you need to push here, and those things. And I try to get people at least enough of a basis in the position that they can start using it on their own after I'm gone. And if they can do that, it's like they can start riding a bike, but then they can develop on their own. So, and then outside of that, just contact me on Facebook if you're interested. Would love to hear from people.
We'll put a link to your Facebook page on the website. I do remember your seminar. You showed the repositioning from side control, and I think the positional sparring that we did helped me remember it a lot easier than I remember most things at seminars. I mean, I remember right where I put my forearm, right where I put my other hand, and I remember which leg. I put my knee on their hip, not my whole leg across the side of their body, and then my other foot's going to come in and push them away to help me push off of them. I remember that all like real specifically because I did it so many times to a live opponent in that position as they were trying not to let me achieve those things. So I had multiple failures as I was trying it, and they were corrected. And I remember them. I didn't do it to a guy that just, go through the motions a few times and see what's next. So I think that really helped me remember it for myself. I'm sure it did for other people as well. So fantastic teaching.
And then definitely, too, you always talk so much about positional sparring and everything like you did there. And Byron and I would meet on Friday nights and just keep working that over and over. We'd have a couple other guys come in, and it really helps cement it. And like you said, because a lot of times I'll do a seminar and I'll forget 75% of what I did. And I can honestly say to all our listeners out there that the seminar will will blow your game up. Your game will really excel after it. You'll learn a ton, and it is very, very informative and awesome.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, we appreciate you hopping on here with us and talking with us. I think you helped a lot of people today.
All right, thank you so much, and I really appreciate it, guys.
It was great talking with Jonathan Thomas. Hope you guys learned a lot. I know we did. Isn't that right, Gary?
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot, and I like hearing these guys that are world champions and go back and talk about their first match. His goal was to not get submitted, and he ends up submitting all 6 of his guys.
Yeah, that's. I don't know very many people that have that first expectation of actually losing, but not losing a certain way. I mean, guys' first tournament, they know they're going to sweep the whole division. It's going to be total domination. And
it goes the other way.
It's so hard to win your first tournament. I mean, that's just the reality. But he had that really positive experience. But he also mentioned his judo experience where the guy got an award for throwing.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Yep.
So he did come back from that, and now look at him. And
yep. But I think, like you said, he had some judo experience, and he trained with a great school early on with Vadi. And like he was talking about, really cemented all the basics, fundamentals, and that's probably why he did so good.
Absolutely, fundamentals are huge, and his ability to recompose in a match, and how he picked up the recomposing pretty.
Yeah, he said he picked it up early in his career.
So that's been really good for him. If you want to help us out, we have our sponsor is Fujisports.com. You can save 10% off your purchase there with the coupon code capital BJJ and capital B on the brick. Let's save you 10% off.
Definitely check it out. Gi, no gi stuff, T-shirts. Great products, great company. Support us, support Fuji, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate that, guys. And if you want to help get the word out about the podcast, obviously you can share it on any social media or let your friends know about it at the gym. Or also there's on iTunes, if you have an iTunes account, you can go there and write us a review, a 5-star review. It helps promote the page and get the word out even more for people who just search for Jiu-Jitsu podcast. It pops up easier. How would somebody email us, Gary?
Well, all I'd have to do is email bjjbrick@gmail.com, and we always like to hear questions, concerns. If you have an article of the week, send it to us. We'd like to see that there too. We're on Twitter there also. We're on Facebook. Check us out. Go in and like us, and have your friends like us. We'd really appreciate that. Yeah.
And if you want, I'm throwing this out there. We usually have people give us the quotes of the week or whatever. But if you want to, if you get a quote you really love or whatever, shoot us an email and I'll call you and we'll get you on here for 5 minutes. And if it's a great quote, we'll be happy to air it.
Yeah, we'd love to have that and have you on the show. That'd be neat. That would be a first. Have one of our listeners giving a quote.
That'd be fun.
Yep.
We'll catch you next week, my friends.
Take care. We appreciate you listening. Have fun.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.